everyone, Karen here, and today we're going to talk about the Curio 2 that I bought about a month or so ago. And so the camera setup is a little bit different today. I have it split so we can see the machine and we can see the software. And I just kind of filled up the bottom corner here. So as we go along, I'll change the size of the screens to show what it is we're actually doing here if we need to. So let me get started with showing you some cuts that I did. Alright, so here are some of the cuts I did. And I did a heart because it has an inside and an outside corner, and it also has a curve, so it's a good test. So I started off with vellum, and I used a blade depth of 1, speed of 3, cut fine. Moved down to acetate, blade depth 1, speed of 2, cut just fine. Then I went on to 199 Nina paper. I went to blade depth 2, I went up the speed of 7. I did use textured paper, was what I used for my beginning point. I used a force of 30, cut just fine. I then went to Nitwit, which is 250 GSM paper, and I cut that at 3 different speeds. I cut it at a 4, a 1, and a 6, and I really could not tell the difference in the cuts, so you absolutely can cut at the faster speed. So when I got to 325 GSM, that's when the static mat wouldn't hold the paper down. It was just too heavy. So that paper I had to tape down. So then I went on to Crafter's Companion Mirror Card, which is very heavy, that I also had to tape. I used a force of 33. I put it on the heavy cardstock setting, but I still was able to cut it at a speed of 5, but a blade depth of 3. Even though I went to heavy cardstock, I still cut it at a 3, and it cut fine. And then I did some Crafter's Companion glitter paper, which I did still blade depth of 3, speed of 5, and it's about 300, I think. And I used a force of 33, and it cut that just fine. Then I went looking through my drawers and to see what else I had. So I had some Cricut faux leather, and that cut just fine. Now that I did go to a blade depth of 5. I still cut it at a speed of 3. And then I also did the faux suede. These were all with the auto blade. Everything here was with auto blade. Force of 33. I did have to go to a blade depth of 6, but I still was able to cut it at a speed of 5. I then went to cork. I had some cork, and that I did the same settings as I did for the faux leather. Blade 5, speed 3, and it even cut the cork perfectly fine. Then I used some Crafter's Companion felt, because their felt is a very good quality. It's very dense, it's very firm, and it did cut it just fine. I used a force of 19 and a speed of 5. I did use the rotary blade, so I did that in cartridge 2. And it cut the felt just fine, the rotary blade. So then I went on to the vinyl that I have. I used some HTV. This is just some plain glossy HTV. I used a blade depth of 1, a force of 10, and a speed of 5, and it cut the heart just fine. Then I went on to some glitter HTV, cut that fine. Blade 4, force 10, speed 5, and it was just fine. Then I used some metallic HDB. This sometimes can be a little harder to cut, but here again it did just fine. It was blade 1, force 10, speed 5. And these were all cut on the debris tray because they didn't stick, and we'll go over that in a minute how the debris tray works, but they wouldn't stick to the static mat. And the last 4 I tried were some permanent vinyl. And here again, it was on the debris tray. Blade 1, speed 5, force 10. I even tried some of the party foil that I had, and I cut that just fine. Blade 5, speed of 5, force of 33, and it cut that just fine. I had some window cling, and that got a clean cut too, with a blade of 2, a speed of 8, and a force of 14. And then I went and took some cardboard that I had, still using the auto blade, I put the blade at 10, speed at 5, force at 7, and it cut the cardboard just fine. And so that was some of the things I tried for regular cuts. So now let's talk about sketching. So sketching still uses cartridge 1, and you'll just put whatever markers you in, just like you do with a Cameo. You open up, you pull this open, you lift this up, you put your marker in, either straight in or with an adapter, depending on what kind you're using. Click that in place. When you go to your software, you pick Sketch, and off you go. And it did that very nicely, nice and even, didn't skip around. I was very happy with that. Alright, so the next thing, I moved on to some embossing. Now I have the vellum that I embossed here because it shows up really well on the camera, but I also did paper. Now what I noticed here is that the default for embossing is the force was way too high for what I was doing in my machine. I did a force of 10 for these, and it absolutely tore the paper when I put the pattern in it. It was okay when I did just an outline, but it allows you to fill in the pattern. And when it did that, it was just way too high. So when I did the rest of them, I cut back to a force of 6. And then I was able to do this, it's hard to see in the camera, but it's flowers on top of books. And then I also did Happy Birthday. That's hard to see on the camera. I did that as an embossing and debossing just to see how the difference would be. Now, we'll get into it in a minute, but you can see here this is the deboss side, and this is the embossed side. And it's your choice which side you want to use. And then, the last thing I tried was some etching. Now, what I learned here is that you want to use a font that is not chunky. A single line, let's see, show this up really close. The single line stars that I did on the top there, they came out really good. So anything that's a single line, not too thick, will come out better. Now, the Christmas trees, I was able to fill in by using the patterns. And we'll talk about that too. But overall, I was very happy with the results I got. It did everything as promised, and it was really great. I really enjoyed using it. Alright, so now let's get down to how the machine works. I'm going to turn this off because mine's been on. So we'll start here at the beginning. So the machine is large. It is a flatbed cutter. It's totally different than the other machines where the mats go back and forth, or whatever you're cutting goes back and forth. Your papers or whatever you're cutting stays still on this, and this piece goes back and forth. So let's start by turning it on. So you will have to hold the button until it comes on. When it comes on, it comes down, it goes back, it does all its things, and then you're good to go. Now, this is the electrostatic mat that allows you to do things without using a mat. Now, it is quite nice because you don't get any sticky residue and your paper doesn't curl up. So this is on, so this lights up when it's on. Now, I did notice the first time I used it, it took it probably a good 3 minutes or so to get the charge going. But the more I use it, the faster the charge seems to be building. So that was on for a few minutes beforehand. So keep that in mind as I put this paper on here. So you just line up from the edge here, press it down, make sure it's good to go, and look, it is not moving anywhere. It stays put, and then when you're ready to pick it up, it just lifts right off. It's really quite nice. No sticky residue, no curling of paper. I cut some really lightweight paper with it, and yeah, it is perfectly fine. So let's cut something here. So let me come back over to the other screen. Alright, so now we are over here at the software, so let's pick a couple shapes. We're going to pick a balloon, and we'll pick a star. Then we'll come over here to send. Now this is Astro Bright paper, so I am going to turn it up a little bit more because That paper has some chunky bits in it, and sometimes it's a little hard to cut. But it is textured paper. We're going to cut. We're using the auto blade. We're in tool number 1. And like I said, I moved it up a little bit because that paper is a little hard to cut. Here it says load your materials and tools into Curio 2. For more information, you can click here. So it goes to their website and it gives you a nice little set of directions here on how to do whatever it is you're trying to do at the time, which is kind of nice. Now we'll hit send. And we'll see what we get. Alright, let's see. Here we go. Now I will say, if you have difficult paper, like this paper that tends to be a little chunky, you can always go 2 passes instead of 1. That will always help go through the chunky bits the second time. Alright, so let's look at what we cut. We have the star. We have the balloon. Both cut very nicely. There you go. So cutting, it does a good job. Now let's move on to something else. This here is the embossing mat. Now it looks like it's a regular cutting mat with a foam pad stuck to it, is the best way to describe it. Now it does have a very thin cover that comes with it, and you're going to want to keep that. Now I will say, when you're doing this, you want to start off kind of light until you can figure out exactly how deep you want to emboss with the paper you're using. Because you can see over here, I used the default and it was way too heavy and it went through the paper I was using. So you definitely want to start lighter and work your way down until you figure out exactly what it is for the paper you're going to do. Now the interesting thing about this is this does stick to the electrostatic mat. You're going to line it up, because this part here is basically 12 by 12. So you're going to put this on here, line it up with it. There are some little lines down here on the bottom that kind of help you a little bit. But you're going to put that on here, and you're going to give it a minute, because it's going to take it a minute to adhere. And then we're going to do some embossing. I'm going to take the paper. I'm just going to go ahead and put the paper on top now. Give it time to stick. And like I said, the longer you use the machine, and that's just not in a daily session. I've noticed every time I use it, it seems to charge a little faster. So let's see if it's, oh, see, it's stuck already. That is definitely good and stuck. Alright, so now we're going to use cartridge 2, because that is where the embossing tool is. Now let me take this out and show it to you. So you can see there's just a little stylus in there that's going to emboss. Now this is the thin one. I tried the thin and the thick. They're both nice. They're personal preference. Try them both. See which one you like better. Now let's go back over here to the software. Alright, so let's get rid of our star and our balloon. And let's write some words. Let's write hello. Works as good as anything else. Now, with embossing, you're gonna want to highlight it where you have the regular square. You're gonna come over here to page setup. Okay, make sure you're on Curio 2, electric bed. You have the mat in, letter size paper. That's very important when you're embossing, because it's going to mirror image it, and you want to make sure if it's 12 by 12, it's going to end up trying to emboss off your paper. So that's very important. So once you double check, make sure your page is set up. Now you're going to come down to the second button, which is the specialty tool panel. Now the first one is emboss or deboss. So deboss presses into the paper, emboss pushes out from the paper. So this machine can't basically emboss. It has to deboss a mirror image, which will give you the emboss. Alright, so we are going to emboss, so I can show you how it's a mirror image. So now that I've hit emboss, it's now giving me some choices down here for some patterns. So let's start with this one. So it gives you some lines, and let's talk about the spacing that we have here. So you can make it really wide and only a few lines, or you can make it really, really tight to where it gives you a more solid emboss. You can also change the angle. So let me bring it up so you can actually tell. You can move the angle around and change this. Now this one is more circles, which doesn't work for some things. The hatch pattern, that works really well. That fills it in nicely. And depending on how you angle it, you're going to look that. And then also, once again, make it wider, make it tighter. There you go. And I will tell you the etching works just like this. So here is a more swirled pattern. You can see the swirl here. We're going to make it tighter. It makes it almost solid. And then you can make it wide open. It's whatever. You can play with it and, see what you like. So I'm going to go with the crosshatch, and I'm going to put it about halfway, just so, we get that. So we're going to hit Release Emboss, which now keeps your words together, but notice it makes it blue, and that's important. So now we're going to go over to Send, because we want to emboss our little hello. So now we're going to go over to Simple here. Now, we're not doing anything with cartridge 1, so we're going to have no cut, and I'm going to close cartridge 1. Cartridge 2, it says Textured Cardstock. I'm embossing. The embossing tool is detective. I'm going to emboss, so notice this became a brighter blue now. And now I can hit Send. It must be blue to use the second tools, and that's how the machine knows. It cuts or sketches in cartridge 1 with the red lines. It uses blue lines for the second cartridge, so that way you know which one is going to do what. So now I'm going to hit Send. So now it's telling me again, it's giving me direction. Load my cardstock onto the electric bed. Load the embossing tool in the cartridge 2. Automatic thickness is enabled, and I want to keep it that way, and I'm going to hit Send. Now let's watch and see what it does over here. So now it's going to come over here. I'll make this bigger. So notice it's on the other side, because it's doing a mirror image of what I wrote on there. So that way it will be embossed. You can see here it's going through, it's putting in all the interior design, the crosshatch that we said we wanted to use. And so it does take it a minute. And I will say the tighter pattern you put on the inside, the longer it takes. And that is also true with the etching. The etching works very similar to the embossing. Alright, so let's see what we have here. I'm going to lift this up. And let's see. Let's see how well this is going to show up in the camera. You can see it. It does look a little better in person. There we go. But it says hello. And this is because it's the mirror image. This is the deboss side. Now you absolutely could use that too if you want. That's a nice effect in and of itself. But just know that if you want to emboss, it's going to mirror image it and print it on the other side. And that's basic embossing. Now the one last thing I want to talk about is etching. So we're going to take off the embossing mat. And I'm going to put the cover back on it before I lose track of it. And I found the easiest way to put this back on is drop it in the middle and put it down. So now we need to take out the electrostatic mat and put in the debris tray. To do that, I'm going to turn it off. I'm going to hit these two clips here, pull them out. I'm going to slide this straight out. And you want to make sure you do it straight out because there are some little teeth here that you want to make sure you do not bend. If you do, your mat will not work ever again. So that is that. Alright, so this is the debris tray. It's just a big flat tray. There's no pins or anything on it, but it does slide in just like the other one slid out. I'm going to put it here at the end. And it falls into the groove. It slides all the way in. It'll be flush here at the end. And you close the buttons up. And now you're good to go. I'm going to turn it back on again. Alright, the next thing I want to show you is etching. So I have some of these little acrylic arches that I bought at Hobby Lobby, and they are 4.5 by 3.25. So what I'm going to do, let's go back over to the software, and let's go back to where it has page setup. We're going to tell it's the Curio 2. Now we have the debris tray in. We're going to use a custom paper size. I am going to tell it is the 3.25 by 5.5, 4.5. So this is the size it is. I know I'm going to have to watch the corners, but this is close enough for what I want to show you. So now let's come over here to some shapes. And let's pick a Christmas tree. And we'll put a tree here. And we'll take it down to maybe 3. No, I don't want that tree. I'll take that tree. Alright, take that down to 3. I'm going to convert it to a path. So now it just acts like a shape. Going to put it about here. Alright, let's grab some letters. We'll spell out Merry Christmas. And let's center that. And shrink it way down. Alright, now I want to open the stretch panel, or warp panel I should say. I want to warp the shape, but I'm going to pick one of the preset ones. So I am going to drag this down a little bit. That corner, that corner down a little bit. That S looks a little scrunchy. So let's bring that up. Bring the C up. That's better. We'll put that up a little bit. Alright, that looks good. So now let's put that, let's release the warp. Gather all the letters together. Now we will center that in the middle of the page. Now let's add some little Christmas stars. Let's grab some stars. Oh, that was a teeny tiny little star. Let's try that again. There we go. So probably about like that, I guess. It's a little big though, so let's convert that to path. Then we will shrink that down, put one there, and oops, one here, here. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Make sure that's back in the middle. Yeah, that's probably good. All right, so now let's come over here to the power tools. We're going to come over here to the power engraver. I'm going to grab all of this. We are going to, wait, no, change my mind. I only want to fill in the Merry Christmas and the tree. Let's see, so the tree, that will take a long time to do. So let's make the tree a little bit bigger there. And let's put it at an angle. And that's probably good for that. Bring up the spacing a little bit more. Okay, release the engraving. Actually, let's grab the whole thing now. Release that, and we'll group all that together. So now we are all set. We have told it it's the debris tray and all that good stuff. All right, let's go over to send. Now we're not going to do anything with cartridge 1, so we're going to have nothing here, because notice this is red. We need to make this blue. So we're going to open cartridge 2. It does see the power engraver. It has detected it. So now we're going to grab everything here. And we're going to say power engrave action, which turns it blue. Okay, so let's go over to send. So now, carriage 1 should have nothing going on, which it doesn't because this is a pale red, it's not on. Now cartridge 2, it is already set, but let's pretend it doesn't have something set, and let's just make something new. So let's add a new material. Okay, this is going to be material 3. We're going to edit the settings for the Curio. In cartridge 2, we're going to go to this plus. We're going to tell it we are looking for a power engraving. Now we are going to put the depth at 0.08. Force of 15, we'll leave all that where it is. Now I want to rename this. I will rename it in a minute, so I'm just going to leave it as new material 3, and I'm going to save it. So now it's showing up here as new material 3. So here I can rename it, and I can put etching, setting, Alright, so now we close this. We're going to come up here for material. We're going to come down to the ones I've added. I'm going to say etching settings. So now it knows it's looking for the power engraver, and it's detected it. Now I'm going to gather all of this, and I'm going to say I want to engrave it. So now it's blue, so now it should be ready to go. And over here on the machine, let's check that. Alright, so I have the piece of acrylic here. I have the debris tray in. We have the mat on top. And I have put the piece of acrylic up here in the corner. And now let's hit send. Now it's going to be loud, but I will fast forward it, and so you do not have to listen to this. So it's going to go through its process of getting all lined up. It's going to measure. It starts. And like I said, it's loud. So let me fast forward this to the end. Okay, so all the noise has now stopped, so let's see what we have. So it took it 6 minutes. Let's see what we have. So it's on the mat still. So I'm going to peel it off. Now I'm going to get a brush. Just going to get one of my paintbrushes, and I'm just going to brush away all the stuff. This is the one reason why you may not want to use a mat, is because you do get some dust. But as long as you take it off and wipe it off afterwards, you're fine. Give it a wipe. That's what your shirt's for. Let's see. All right, came out cute. So let's see. Let me put a piece of paper behind it so you can see it a little bit better. Does that help? Nope, that does not help at all. Let me try a dark one. There we go. So now we have Merry Christmas with some stars. There. Let me get this straighter. Alright, there we go. So we have Merry Christmas. We have some stars. We have the Christmas tree. You can see the pattern in there. There you go. It is that simple to etch. So I think we have covered everything. So I hope you enjoyed this. And I will say I give this machine very good reviews. I like it. I think this is going to be a good workhorse. I'm still going to keep my Curio, my Cameo. It's still sitting right here. There has been times where I've had both machines going at the same time. It is nice to be able to run both at the same time. You can get things done a little faster. And I hope and when you're in the market to buy a new machine, you know, this is helpful for you to decide if this is what it is you need. Because, you know, every machine's a little different and it needs to fit what it is you're going to use it for. You know, machines normally aren't good or bad. It's do they do what you need them to do? And until next time, stay crafty, my friends.